Hello team, and welcome to this video where I'm going to be covering everything you need to know about what to get to sharpen and strop your carving tools. Now, I've tried loads of different things in the market, from diamond stones, ceramic stones, water stones, oil stones, abrasive powders. I've tried different abrasive papers on different mediums, from placing them onto wood, placing them onto sheets of metal, placing them onto tiles, and I still haven't been satisfied. When I was using the water stones, I felt that I was constantly having to flatten them, and I was using abrasive paper to do that, which was a waste in itself. They weren't cutting quickly, they were dishing very quickly. I've used diamond stones, but they're extremely expensive for quality diamond stones. And to get one that can take you up to where we want to be, which is around about 8,000 grit before we start to strop, you're looking at around about $200. It's just mind-blowing, it's totally unnecessary. Of course, then we have oil stones, but they cut slowly, they're messy. Talking about mess, water stones will get a mess everywhere. Water stones don't cut on the actual stone itself, it cuts on the slurry that forms between the stone and the steel. That means that you have to have the slurry for it to be efficient, and it just becomes a nightmare. And it got so frustrating, I got so annoyed, that back in 2016, I finally decided to spare no expense and create the complete sharpening and stropping kit for my own needs. It was never intended for sale, just so that I could get the sharpening done quick, easy, mess-free. I didn't have to flatten anything. I didn't have to spend a huge amount on diamond stones and then still not get a fine enough edge. And I've done that, and I've now used this for a number of years. There are thousands of people around the world that now use my sharpening system, from some of the world's best spoon carvers, professional spoon carvers, through to people that are just starting out in spoon carving. The thing to remember with sharpening is there's no such thing as a starter kit. What you need is what you need, and you can't really go around that. We'll start with each one individually, and I'll talk about them, how they're made, and if you want to find out more information about purchasing any of these pieces of equipment for yourself, there is a waiting list at the time of this video. It's about 10 to 12 weeks that I'm working on at the moment. I'm always doing my best to get through that waiting list as quick as possible, but being handmade, having very high standards, it just takes time. So we'll get started, we'll get right into it. So this is what I call my float glass and jarrowwood sharpening system. It's a thick lump of precision float glass adhered to an Australian hardwood. It's called jarrah. Very, very hard, very dense, and very stable. The adhesive was a little bit of a secret. The adhesive is extremely strong. It's got a very high shear strength. It also allows for the movement between the wood and the glass itself. And then finally, I've adhered a heavy-duty ripstop non-slip mat on the base, which, as I said, can be placed onto a table. It doesn't need a jig or a clamp, just minimizing what we need. The beautiful thing about this system is I can simply buy adhesive back sandpaper, I can cut it to the size I need, stick it down or peel the back off, stick it down and start my sharpening. There's no need to soak, there's no need to do anything afterwards. It's a real maintenance-free system that I can use from a 20 grit to reprofile my tools, all the way up to 60,000 grit abrasive papers if I wanted to get a very fine edge. I go to 8,000 grit, it's far more than enough, and it's a case of peeling, sticking, that's all you do. We'll move on to now what we'll do once we've sharpened it. So we put it back in its case. Once the blade has been sharpened, if you're using a very good quality set of strops, you'll rarely ever have to go back to your sharpening stone. Now, I tend to sharpen once every 3 or 4 months, and I carve professionally. In between that, I just strop a lot. But strops are not created equal. I've used a number of different leathers, and I still haven't been happy. I found a huge amount of people struggling with microconvection, and that's basically where the blade will compress into the leather or suede, and it will wrap around that cutting edge, effectively dulling it from the first pass. So I did a lot of research, I looked into the best leathers possible, and I've decided to use kangaroo leather. There's a very good reason. Kangaroo leather is 10 times the tensile strength of cow, with a natural thickness of around about 0.6 mil or 25 thousandths of an inch. With that thickness, it won't compress, it's adhered to the hard jarrowwood again with a very fine film of adhesive, 150 kilo strength 2-part epoxy. It's not going anywhere, and that way I can put as much force onto this strop as I like. I'll never get microconvection, and I'll maintain that true flat cutting edge, and that's the secret to this. If I was to get cow leather and I was to skive it down and adhere it to this, it just wouldn't last, it'd fall apart. but the inherent strength of Kangaroo means that I can have it at its natural thickness, and no matter how many times I strop, I'm never going to damage this material. I have a suede and I also have a leather. They do two different roles. The suede is the side you apply your compound to, and that is a very fine abrasive compound that will break over time or break down over time, and that will help to remove the burr and to polish the edge. Once we've done that, we can stop there if we want to, but far better is to then move on to pure leather without any compound whatsoever. This will further refine the edge and give your blade a sharpest of edges as possible. It's a very simple system, very simple setup. It has the non-slip mat, so it doesn't need to be put into a clamp to be used. They all come with their cases, and again, it's just following that ethos of I want simple, bomb-proof, hard-wearing, quality products that are going to last a long time. And I also, when I sell these, I don't charge any more than what a typical strop would cost in the shop, except you're going to get far better quality and to be able to speak to me personally, so I can help you, I can teach you how to use these products. So you're not always just going to a shop, buying something and being left with not really knowing what to do. Drop me a private message and I'll teach you everything you need to know about how to use them, how to maintain them, and how to get the longest life out of them possible. Then lastly, we have what we call a hook knife, or what I call my hook knife strop stick and sharpening system. This is an all-in-one system to sharpen and strop the hook knife, and very simple. I've basically got leather on one end, suede on the other. I've saddle stitched it with the traditional English style saddle stitching, which doesn't make the stitch stronger. The strength of a stitch is determined by the thickness of the thread and the type of the thread, but what it does do is it locks each stitch into place, meaning that if you were to ever cut one of these stitches or this thread, it won't come undone, and that's really, really good to know. Obviously it comes with the cases as well, one leather, one suede, but as I said, it's an all-in-one system, so I use this to sharpen as well. If I take away the sleeve here, it leaves me with a piece of wood. I can wrap my sandpaper around, I can sharpen on the inside, and then I can go through my abrasive grits, I can pop them back on, the sleeves back on, and then I have the suede to strop with the compound, leather to polish, and then they've obviously got their cases to keep everything nice and clean. This is why I love this system. It's quick, easy, efficient, easy to store, never causes microconvection, and it will give you the sharpest edges possible on your knives. Lastly, we need to get something to maintain our strops. I designed a cleaning kit, and it's simply 3 different types of brushes, which is really useful. They all have a different role. Comes in a case. It has a scraper card, 2 different abrasive papers. So basically what you'd do when the compound builds up on the suede, let's find the suede strop. When the compound builds up over time, you'll scrape it off with the burr scraper, or the scraper card with the part that says burr. Then what we need to do is we need to remove the baubles almost that will come from the suede because you've scraped them up. You take the abrasive paper which is underneath here, and then you sand that down. That'll give you a very smooth edge. And then you can use either one of these 2 brushes to further make sure you've removed all of the compound. And finally the nylon brush, which is really great just to remove any of the abrasive particles that have come from the paper. There's also another sheet of abrasive paper in here, and that is to maintain the burr on the scraper card and maintain the burr on these wire brushes. That over time will tend to soften up because obviously you're rubbing them against an abrasive compound. But that's everything that you need to maintain your strops, to use your strops, maintain the tools that we use in carving. And there's nothing more important than a good quality set of strops and sharpening system. If you can use a quality set of strops that doesn't compress, doesn't cause microconvection, you get a sharper, longer lasting edge that's going to be so much more enjoyable to use. You don't have to waste a huge amount of your precious steel on your blade, and it just streamlines this process. So my first-hand experience hasn't been great with the products that I've used on the market, and I finally gave in to designing my own, and now, as I said, I sell them all around the world. If you are interested in grabbing a quality set of strops or sharpening system, as I said, there is a wait at the moment, but drop me a message below. I've left my email in the comments section, the little box below the video, you know what I mean. Drop me an email and I'll be able to get you on that list. I can share all the prices with you there as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, hopefully it was helpful, hopefully it answers some of the questions you have, and maybe it's given you the answer to the problems that you've been struggling with. Maybe you can't get your blade sharp even though you seem to think that you are sharpening it. Maybe that you have to constantly go back to your sharpening system means that something isn't quite right. As I said, I tend to sharpen every 3 or 4 months, and in between that I simply strop to maintain my sharp edges. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe. press that bell notification to be notified of when I upload new videos. And if you have enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really helps me out. It allows me to take the time out of my day to be able to produce these videos for you.